The rise of robots hasn't exactly gone smoothly, but companies are determined to get it right. LG announced recently that it's deploying a fleet of robots at the international airport in Seoul, South Korea. This isn't the first we've heard of these adorable friends. LG announced them earlier this year, and they've been hanging out in the Seoul airport for the last 5 months or so as part of a, quote, beta test. During that time, LG engineers have been testing and improving their performance while the robots presumably loitered and caused trouble. But now that they're out of their rebellious teenage years, they're ready to be pressed into service. This is still considered a trial. After all, LG doesn't want the robots to become suicidal and launch themselves into a fountain to end it all. There are 2 robots that are in service right now, an airport guide robot and an airport cleaning robot. Now, the guide robot is in place to interact with passengers. It can understand 4 languages, Korean, English, Chinese, and Japanese, thanks to LG's voice recognition software. It can tell you where a restaurant is located or escort latecomers to their gate with priority. The cleaning robot is in place to make sure that the airport stays tidy by monitoring the areas that need the most frequent cleaning. So in other words, you'll probably see this little guy in the bathroom the next time you're in the Seoul airport. Check this out, Stan Lee back in the news with a new project that will have a familiar sound. His own voice. The legendary comic book writer has teamed up with Ryan Silbert and Luke Lieberman to create a new long-form audiobook for Audible.com. Lee will narrate the introduction to the novel, which will introduce fans to a new universe described as a Mr. Robot set in a John Hughes world. Lee says, when Audible came to us with the idea of doing an audio project first, I thought it was inspired. He's the chief creative officer and chairman of POW Entertainment, by the way. The story is set within a culture of cutting-edge technology, so it deserves to be brought to audiences in a medium that truly captures the spirit of the universe, yet allows the listener to create their own unique mental picture of the story. Now, what Audible is doing is truly groundbreaking, but it is also bringing us back to our roots, Lee said. Production on the project will begin shortly. We're thrilled to bring the Stan Lee universe to life and to listeners in this unprecedented written to the audio format endeavor with POW Entertainment. The immersive audio experience will excite and exhilarate all fans of Stan Lee's work. The what-if questions surrounding emerging tools and know-how are the context of our story. That came from Silbert and Lieberman. We aim to blend this with an accessible human narrative to deliver the experience you expect from Stan Lee, where street-level heroes uncover global conflicts much bigger than they ever imagined. No word on the release, but we will keep you informed when we know more, right here on your weekly tech update. Google Street View is back in the news with its first foray into space itself, and gives those of us who will likely never get to visit the International Space Station a chance to explore all of its 15 modules. The new imagery lets you walk or drift through the different modules, and given the complexity of the ISS, Google thankfully provides explanations for some of the equipment that you'll encounter during your journey. At the time the astronauts gathered the imagery for this project, one of SpaceX's Dragon vehicles was actually parked at the ISS. And that means you can also take advantage of getting to see how cargo gets delivered. Unlike an Earth-bound lab, the ISS design isn't bound by gravity. And that means that you do indeed need a full 360-degree view to take it all in. Sadly, Google's controls sometimes make it a bit hard to do so, given that the Street View system wasn't exactly built for this kind of experience. As with all Street View launches, though, it's all about clicking through the imagery yourself. So head on over to Google Maps and give it a try. You won't be disappointed. Oh man, this is exciting. Elon Musk back in tech news this week. His latest venture, The Boring Company, has certainly been a source of amusement for some. Now the billionaire visionary has tweeted that he's received verbal government approval to build a New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore, DC Hyperloop system. That'll get you from New York to Washington in about 29 minutes. It currently takes approximately 2.5 hours to travel between the two cities on Amtrak's Acela Express. The company is currently working on tunnels aimed at relieving congestion in LA. Musk tweeted that the New York DC Hyperloop would be constructed in parallel with city center to city center service, including up to 12 entry and exit points per city, followed by a Los Angeles to San Francisco loop. He also envisions a Texas loop as well. That's some pretty far off planning. We're not sure who is going to work with Musk and the Boring Company on these projects. Chances are, though, that it will be Hyperloop One. The company recently completed a successful test of its maglev transport system, but even more importantly, well, it's staffed by former SpaceX workers, and Musk is friends with its co-founder. No more details exist at this time. Musk is not known for keeping projects quiet for long, though, so I'm sure we won't have to wait. Reebok has just announced their new space boot, the SB01. It's a game-changing piece of footwear for astronauts. The company has teamed up with the David Clark Company to upgrade the space boots that haven't seen any updates now for over 50 years. The high-tech space boot is set to be worn by astronauts on an upcoming mission to the ISS, promising to be lightweight and to provide responsive cushioning. The Reebok Space Boot features the company's latest innovation, the Float Ride Foam, which features a consistent cell structure that delivers seamless integration of cushioning and responsiveness. Weight is a huge factor in space travel, with just a single pound having a big financial implication. Traditional space boots were made of rigid leather with firm soles and were not integrated into the actual spacesuit. Reebok Float Ride Foam introduced 3 revolutionary elements to the space boot. It decreased the overall weight significantly. It brought the added comfort in a space boot and support that you would expect in a running shoe, and it delivered a new level of sleekness and style. Astronauts are currently testing the Reebok Space Boot, and it could become the standard footwear for spaceflight in the very near future.